do sweats ruin games? I think I remember starting to see the term sweat maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. As far as I can tell, the term started from streamers using it to describe players that are constantly doing their absolute best to win. But trying to win at something is nothing new. But I do think the concept of sweating at a game, while it does involve trying to win, I think there's a lot more to that. And this is one of the more theoretical sort of videos where I want to get the discussion started on this whole sweat culture idea. And if you have any input you'd like to add, the comment section will be open for you to do so. I do remember that before the term sweat was even a thing, I used to play Smash Bros competitively, to the extent that I actually went to in-person tournaments. And I wasn't too bad. I managed to get on the local power rankings, even if I just barely squeezed in. And I remember playing that game, running across people that some of us considered to be tryhards, which that was, I guess, the term that predates the sweat term, where you have these people that seem like they're trying way too hard to win, and they're either taking away a lot of the fun, or they're playing so meta that they're actually easier to fight because they're trying too hard. That is where this whole idea starts in my mind. Nowadays, the term sweat basically means somebody that dedicates their life to a game, essentially, and plays it like it's a full-time job. So I have noticed this sweat culture has caused a lot of controversy among the gaming communities as a whole, where you have the one side that says sweats are ruining my favorite games, and the other side says you're just bad if you criticize somebody that has put in the hours to get good at a game. And so it's like there's this divide between casual players and competitive players, and they just don't see eye to eye on things. But from my perspective, I've always seen there being a difference between being good at a game and doing whatever it takes to win. Partly it's a mindset difference where some people reach a point where fun just doesn't matter anymore and all they care about is doing whatever it takes to win. That, in my mind, is what a sweat generally looks like. But I have always considered that type of person to be a tryhard, where they only care about optimizing everything and trying to be as objectively competitive as possible. And to a lot of casual players, that type of player is a problem because they minimize their favorite game down to a very specific way to play, especially in team-based games. If a casual player in a sweat like this is in the same team, you're going to run into some legitimate issues where neither side is going to like each other, and that disjoint in the team consistency will probably just lead to worse play overall from both the casual and sweaty player. But it's that mindset of perfectly objective optimization that, in my mind, defines what a sweat is. And technically, there's nothing wrong with that. It makes perfect sense that if somebody wants to win, they would just do whatever it takes to win, right? They would ignore every suboptimal option in pursuit of the exact best option. But while that mindset has become increasingly more popular over the years, so has this other option known as cheating. And I think the argument could be made that there is a correlation, potentially, between this perfect optimization mindset and cheating. While there are a lot of casual players that use cheating to get around their bad aim or whatever, there's a lot of sweats that use cheats too. And you can see this in like Apex, where a lot of the Apex predators run cheats. And I want to present the possibility that cheating is simply the next logical step in that perfect optimization, where people have reached their cap and they're like, but how do I be better than this? I'm already using the best character, the best setup, and I am doing the best possible options. If the only thing that you think about is pure optimization and you do whatever it takes to achieve that optimization, then it makes a lot of sense that the next step is to use cheats to make up for any human error that you may have left. And that, to me, is the problem with this, quote, sweat culture. Personally, I think the term sweat has been used incorrectly. I don't think in its current context it really has that much meaning, and I have always preferred the term try hard for this reason. Because it's this whole do whatever it takes to win mindset, rather than putting in excessive amounts of hours into a game. Obviously, the excessive amount of hours is part of it, but it's more like a symptom of the problem rather than the problem itself. The problem being that it's not that people being good at a game is a problem, but rather it is the objectivity around being good at the game that has been blown out of proportion and has caused people to increasingly resort to extremes such as cheating. Because think about it, if all you ever do in a game is use the most optimal options possible, cheating makes so much sense, because it is the next optimal step. Because why would you not want to minimize every possible chance for human error if all you care about is winning? It's the mindset that has led to this excessive cheating problem, where yeah, people are going to pay to win, spend $2 a day to run their aim hacks, and people complain, oh, they're just bad at the game, why don't they just get good? A lot of those people are already good. That's the problem. We're talking about people that put in thousands of hours into their favorite game. But to be top of the leaderboards now, you have to use cheats, because winning has become so important and optimization has become so necessary that it's the next logical step. So yes, what I am basically saying, I am blaming the cheating situation on sweat culture, because it makes so much sense in the context of somebody that has effectively thrown away their humanity in favor of winning. And that is a problem. And I know some people will say, so you have a problem with people trying to like win at video games or something? No, I don't. I try to win at games too. I feel like even casual players try to win. They're not just going out of their way to lose. And that's not what this is about. This is about the mindset as to why you want to win, not the fact that you want to win. Because generally speaking, it is more fun to win than it is to lose. But ever since streamers started to get a lot more prevalent, and this idea of like super optimized Twitch clips with these really cool plays started to get into the minds of people, there was a shift between being good at a game and just trying really hard at a game. And there's a good comment I found on a Reddit post that pretty much explains where this whole sweat culture came from, basically from streaming. And I happen to agree with it. I'll probably put it up on the screen. But effectively, this is where we have gone. Not just because winning became so incentivized, but it was a combination of that with optimization becoming too objective to the point where minimizing the amount of obstacles in the way from winning is the meta. So I remember a time when some of the best players that I've ever seen in a game used some of the least popular options out there and would still absolutely club pretty much anyone, because they found the option that best suits them and they optimized it so much that they became as good as all the tryhards that are chasing the meta and the perfect optimization. And I remember seeing a discussion about this years ago, talking about a Smash Bros. Player called Mewtwo King. And in this discussion, Mewtwo King at the time was considered to be an optimization first player, where the only options that Mewtwo King would go for is what is perfectly optimal for each scenario. And of course, back in the day, this was kind of a foreign concept to some people because the sweat culture was still emerging at this point. But nowadays, that mindset is very common, and the majority of people that are good at a game have that mindset now. But the discussion did not stop there. The conversation was discussing how because of Mewtwo King's perfect optimization, he was also perfectly predictable, where as long as you knew the perfect optimization in that scenario, you literally knew Mewtwo King's next move, because perfect optimization is actually quite predictable. And in a fighting game like Smash Bros, which I believe this was referring to Smash Bros. Melee, there are scenarios where using a quote mix-up option is actually superior than doing the perfectly optimal option, because it throws your opponent off guard, or it's something that they did not predict you would do. And that is actually how Mewtwo King would often lose matches, because as long as you're good enough to understand the options that are perfectly optimal, you could completely read Mewtwo King's every move. You can reach a point where you are so incredibly perfect at a game that you actually start to become easier to beat. And that is the pitfall that oftentimes tryhards fall into, where they can be so meta blind that unless they are actually top cut, the perfect optimization doesn't always work. And I see this in Pokemon tournaments literally all the time, which is why I like Pokemon's competitive scene a fair bit, even if the Pokemon company handles it like garbage. That is a game where you see 80% of players use like a meta standard team, and so few times does a meta standard team actually win the tournament. It's always this fringe option. I think recently there was like a Specs Articuno that won or something. Like, Articuno's bad, just stats, typing, everything. But an Articuno won, and I imagine after that there's going to be a lot more people using Articuno teams. Why is that? Because people want to do whatever it takes to win. They see what wins at a tournament and they say, I'm going to use that exclusively from now on. But that kind of puts into perspective what's really happening here, where you're finding more and more people that are effectively meta blind to the point that they are stripping away their own sense of, I guess, humanity in favor of perfect optimization. And that is why I think cheating's become more prevalent. And as a global culture, since the internet sort of has globalized culture, humanity in general has become a lot more objective over the years. And while in many ways that has been good, having just objectivity doesn't really work for humans, because humans have their own personalized experiences. And to strip those away is to strip away a core part of the human experience. So you basically have hyper sweats that are turning into robots, and because they're turning into robots, why would they not use robots to help them aim, help them see through walls, so on and so forth? Because it is the next logical step. If you're already gonna throw away your subjectivity, you might as well just go all the way. And that's what a lot of people have done. And it's that mindset that continues to grow as time goes on. But in my mind, those people have always been tryhards, not sweats. Sweat's just the new term, but I prefer the term tryhard personally. But there's a really good YouTube comment I stumbled across one day, and I don't even remember the video it was off of. It had nothing to do with games, but it brings up a very interesting point. And this YouTube comment said that sanity is a stable bridge between objective and subjective. And thinking about that, I actually think there's some truth in that, where you need to have a balance between the objective perfection and the subjective experience. And swaying too hard on either side can lead to insanity. And I think we're seeing that in the sweaty gamer culture, because now you have people that not only put in thousands of hours into their favorite games, but they do that while also running hacks to be even better. It's almost like cheating became a pay-to-win mechanic and less so a immoral, sort of unethical thing. But I guess that's the problem when you become so objective, morality doesn't exist anymore. So why not just turn everybody into robots? You might as well not even have a controller. You just have a bot play the game for you, because eventually those will get better than humans. And then you can get all the wins you want, until everyone else has a robot that's just as good. And then you have to train it, and then that would be an entirely different mess. That's a hypothetical scenario. That'll never happen, right? I'm not here trying to say what's right and what's wrong. I'm simply giving my opinion, because from what I can see, it looks like the overemphasis on objectivity is at its core the root cause that has this considerable trickle-down effect that has led to sweats ruining games, quote. I'm not actually convinced that sweats completely ruin games, as much as that mentality leads to games no longer being built for fun anymore, which, depending on what side you're on, is a good thing or a bad thing. Because if you are that hyper-competitive, objective, sweaty mentality person, minimizing the amount of options that don't line up with your idea of how the game should be played is considered ideal. Similar to how the charge rifle was removed from Apex and replaced with a much sadder version of the charge rifle. Same with World of Tanks ruining high explosive shells and nerfing artillery into the ground because, you know, options that are easier are considered anti-competitive. And some people are really happy with changes like that. Other people lost their answers to sweats because they no longer have their easier to play option that oftentimes was not even considered optimal. Because there's a difference between easier to play and optimal. But it's so strange to me that we've reached a point where options that are easier for a casual player to be effective with is considered anti-competitive. And in a lot of ways, people consider the solution to this entire thing being just better matchmaking. You just have matchmaking where all the sweaty tryhards go live together in their own world, and the casuals get to live together in their own world, and everyone's happy. Personally, I don't think that changes a thing, because good matchmaking where everything is, quote, fair, will, for one, make every match feel the same, but for two, is far too idealistic, because as long as human error exists and some people have good days where they play really well, and then sometimes they have bad days where they play like garbage, matchmaking can't fix that. Matchmaking can't read your mind to see how good you're doing that day and throw you into a different bracket, because if it did that, then you could have smurfing become super prevalent. So the better matchmaking becomes, the less human error is allowed, because you have to play according to your stats. Otherwise, people are going to be upset with you. It does not matter if that is a casual lobby or a competitive lobby. If you do not play according to your stats, matchmaking's bad, which is why I do not think better matchmaking fixes things. Better matchmaking actually makes it worse, because it forces people to play as competently and consistently as their stats would suggest, which is very idealistic and in a perfect utopian world would make a ton of sense. But we live in reality, and reality has this thing called humans in it, and humans make mistakes. What a shock. So as long as humans continue to make mistakes, that ever-increasing trending towards objectivity that slowly takes away the humanity out of people will also slowly take away the fun from games. So I do not think better matchmaking solves anything as much as it is a means of enabling. Almost seems inevitable at this point that we are going to become too objective to be able to enjoy things anymore. Perhaps that's just a catastrophizing theory, but do your own research and see what you find, because from what I have looked at, that is what I see. A level of objectivity that has been causing problems, and subjective experiences are considered anti-competitive or suboptimal. But I want to know what you think, because I'm not here to be Mr. Right, because I'm merely just giving my opinion, which is inherently subjective, because with all the objectivity in the world, perhaps what we actually need is a little bit more subjectivity, you know, to allow opinions to exist. Because that's been going away too, in case you haven't noticed. People are becoming increasingly less tolerant of opinions that differ from the objective standard. But I'm just a guy that rambles about things on YouTube. So let me know what you think about this entire idea in the comment section below. I'm curious to see what other people have to say. But I think that's going to be enough rambling from me today. Thank y'all so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see y'all next time.